we've been always together in the international things. So it's like a reunion for us.
Yeah, even we got close Jakarta and Bali, but then, sometimes Kanye and Bali, but it's hard for us to meet each other. But anyway, we met in Zoom right now. So how are your house in Taiwan right now? You still have time to chit chat, right, Amira? Or
We still have 2 minutes.
okay, because Bali is quite rainy right now. For the last few days, quite rainy season in Bali, and the wind is quite strong. So how about in your place, guys? How about in Taiwan, Gretchen? Is it the weather quite friendly with it? Or Gosan, how about the weather in Taiwan? Is it
It's raining
clear,
and kind of cold.
kind of cold?
Yeah, but it's winter, so, so and the rain is
How about
finally stopped.
mm,
Mm.
yeah, hopefully, the global warming wouldn't give us, will make us survive, hopefully.
Mm. I think I need to blur my background, but how can I use it? Because the background is too messy.
You can use the arrow beside the videos and then choose the blur my background from
Okay.
your computer.
Okay.
The arrow after the video.
Okay. Oh, because I'm bad at using computer.
It's okay.
Okay, let's.
No problem, Gosan. Me too. So it's not only you.
We are all no digital native.
Yeah. Well, I'm not the digital.
Di sini agak hujan-hujan, tapi Amira kalau aku mulai goyang, kabari aku mungkin off cam.
Okay.
Dingin banget sini, Ke. Serius. Apa ada pohon di sebelah rumahku, dahannya retak, jadi kabel wifi ku putus. Dia ini pakai tethering HP.
Ya ampun.
Dia ada angin puting beliung di Sanur semalam.
Oh ya?
Hmm,
Wow.
semalam di Sidakarya.
Oh my God, I hope you guys are okay ya in Bali.
Thank you. Yeah,
I
last
mean,
night it was, sorry, yeah, it was quite, we got like small, well, very hard rain and wind close by here in Sanur. So for about 20 minutes with motorbikes from here. So some trees that falling apart on the big street. And today still the rain is quite heavy and the wind is really strong in Denpasar, Bali. So yeah, Gosan, yeah, okay. Jakarta aman ke?
Yeah, we got raining all night, like always in the early morning or late night, raining like continuously, and then make some of our places flooding. Like it's common in Jakarta, like even just a little bit of rain, they probably like a floats. So yeah, but I don't know in contrast office.
It's
Uh,
raining very heavily every day. Maybe because we are in the same region. But anyway, do you mind if we start now?
go.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, good.
Could you hear us? Oh, sorry. Just to check.
Okay, I'll start then. Good evening, everyone that join us from Indonesia, Taiwan, or different part of the world. On behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to warmly welcome you to today's international webinar called The Role of Civil Society Organization for Transitional Justice. We are truly honored by your presence and participation. My name is Azlia Amira Putri from Commission for the Disappearance and Victim of Violence, or CONTRAS, and I'll be serving you as moderator for today's session. Before we begin, allow me to go over a few points. First is this webinar will be held in English and being recorded live on YouTube and Zoom. And second is, please don't hesitate to ask on the live chat as we have a session for question and answer later. You can ask at any point of the discussion and we will gather all the questions at the end, and thank you for your cooperation. And now maybe I would like to introduce about the issue today. And since the fall of the new order, Indonesia has adopted various legal and institutional instruments to address gross human rights violations. The country's history includes several instances of serious human rights abuse, most notably the 1965 until 1966 tragedy. This period saw a series of large-scale killing and civil unrest primarily targeting members and perceived sympathies of the Communist Party of Indonesia, or PKI, with an estimated 1 million life lost. However, over time, it has become clear that this process never fully addressed the roots of impunity. This failure has given rise to structural impunity that directly impacts the security and freedom of movement. Taiwan, on the other side, has developed a relatively more systematic transitional justice framework through the establishment of a truth commission and the strengthening of national human rights institutions. Similarly, from 1949 to 1987, Taiwan experienced a prolonged period of martial law and systemic political repression, known as the White Terror. Under Kuomintang or KMT rule, thousands of people were tortured, imprisoned, executed, or exiled for being deemed threat to national security. To address such legacies of abuse, transitional justice has emerged as a conceptual framework and a set of mechanisms designed to provide accountability and healing. After the fall of White Terror around the middle of 1990s, the state provided a compensation for the 228 incident and the White Terror to the victims' families. Later on, in 2016, through transitional justice efforts were initiated and established two commissions to address KMT wrongdoing in the past, which is the Ill-Gotten Party Asset Settlement Committee, or CHIPAS, and Transitional Justice Commission, or TGC. And this webinar will explore how transitional justice is implemented in Indonesia and Taiwan, and sharing perspective both from victim communities and CSO. And next, I would like to introduce our speaker today. First, we have Ngurah Termana from Komunitas Taman 65. Ngurah Termana has been active in Komunitas Taman 65 since 2005. He has been actively involved in historical truth-telling campaigns, particularly regarding the 1965 violence in Bali and Indonesia. He is also an early member of the Amnesty International Indonesia Society and is frequently invited to attend events related to historical truth-telling and in transitional justice, including the 2020 conference, revisiting the transformative potential of transitional justice held in Berlin. Second, we have Fred Chin or Chin Hin Sam. He was born in Ipoh, Perak, Malaysia in 1949. During the 1970s, under Taiwan White Terror era, he was studying in Taiwan when he was falsely imprisoned for 12 years, enduring torture, isolation, and injustice under martial law. He was detained on accusation of involvement in the Tainan-US Information Service bombing incident and alleged ties to the Communist Party in Malaysia. Today, Fred volunteers at the National Human Rights Museum, where he shares his story with public and advocates for human rights and democracy. And third, we have Sam Wang, Executive Director of the Taiwan Youth Association for Transitional Justice and Consent, currently pursuing master degree in Taiwan literature at National Chenghe University. Sam joined the organization team of the Gongsheng commemoration in 2021. His work focused on advocating for transitional justice by transforming Taiwan historical narrative into fiction. And last, we have Kania Mamonto from Asia Justice and Right. She is a human rights practitioner at AJAR, working on transitional justice, women's rights, and community-based peace building. She's a mentor of young activists, women human rights defenders, and communities. With AJAR, Kania also designed intergenerational learning space that connect history with today's struggle and strengthen regional solidarity in Southeast Asia for truth, justice, and future without violence. So, without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Ngurah Termana and to deliver their presentation, and you have approximately 20 minutes, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much, Amira. Can you hear me clearly right now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, and good evening, everyone. And thank you, Contrast, for the invitation. So, yes, I'll make a very simple, presentation. So I hope it can help everyone to understand what I would like to present today. So what I would like to share today is not only about unresolved past violence, but also how the Indonesian state successfully performs stability while preserving impunity. So, because in Indonesia, especially not only Indonesia and Bali, which are reflected where I live right now, Indonesia peace is often presented as a harmony, but harmony can be curated and silence can be institutionalized. So, next, please. Mira? Yeah. So, why this matters? So the past when the issue matters because Indonesia officially, for me, acknowledged the past human rights violation, but yet consistently fails to resolve them. In Indonesia, the state often acknowledges that the violence happened, but consistently avoids addressing who was responsible for it. For example, there was in 2016, the government organized the National Symposium for 1965 genocide, where invited the survivor of 1965 violence and also the perpetrators. It was framed as a dialogue toward national reconciliation. However, this initiative explicitly avoided judicial accountability. The symposium did not lead to criminal investigation, prosecution or establishment of human rights court. For the other example, we have aksi kamisan, for families of disappearing activists from 97 and 98, weekly demonstration stood in silent protest. I mean, not silent, but in peaceful protests held every Thursday in front of Presidential Palace in Jakarta. This action continued, I think, that now over more than 19 years, demanding the truth and justice. Despite the persistence, there has been no meaningful legal process about what's the disappearance activists in 97 and 98. The other cases, like Trisakti and Semanggi shootings, where there were many students shot, student deaths are officially commemorated, but no senior official have been held accountability. So the recognition exists, but primarily at the levels of symbol, ceremonies, and moral gesture. Victims are recognized symbolically, while perpetrators remain protected by the state. I think this is not a failure of memory alone. This is the failure that shapes democracy, law, and state power today. Next. Amira. Oh. So, transitional justice, I will not, sorry, can you hear me clearly? Because in here, your connection is unstable. Everyone can hear me still good? So, yeah, so I hope it's all good. So, I don't want to go too deep in this transitional justice framework because the other speaker will talk about this more deeper or clearer than me. But what I would like to say that in Indonesia, this pillar exists normatively, but their implementation is fragmented and selective. This selectively is political structure rather than incidental. And its logics become clear when we examine the unresolved violence about 1965 and 66. Next, Amira. So 1965 and 66 is a long-term violence. 1965 and 66, well known mostly because of the mass killing. But as long as we know that the impact is went far beyond that. Like Amira's mentioned earlier, and also scholars estimate that for about 1 million people were killed. But at the same time, hundreds of thousands were imprisoned without trial, often for years and entirely outside any judicial process. The mass detention was followed by systemic loss of civil and political rights. The victims and their families were barred from public employment and placed under long-term surveillance through administrative regulation, not court ruling. And equally important is the long-term social stigma. Survivors and their family were labeled as politically dangerous. Up till now, we still know that in Indonesia, it is really prohibited to learn about all kind of leftist kind of knowledge, from Marxism, communism, and of course, it's affecting the access of education. And, for the victims, also affected the social mobility for the kids. This stigma was transmitted across generation. From transitional justice perspective, this period represents a comprehensive collapse of all four pillars. The truth was denied, the justice was absent, reparations were never provided, and no meaningful institutional reform allowed. As a result, I think the genocide of 65, which is started in October of 65, not only ended in 1966, but it became embedded in everyday life and state institution for generation. Next. 1965 is a systematic. 1965 violence in Indonesia was not spontaneous. It was highly systematic. The state deployed coordinated propaganda through media to label certain groups of threats. Military command structures ensured the killing and arrests were organized rather than random things. Civilians were mobilized to monitor and report neighbors, turning communities into instrument of operations, and also long-term surveillance through blacklists identified those who are alleged with communists, enabling targets action over months. For example, the victim of 65 genocide or the survivor, 4 years they have special identity card with ET on it. ET means ex-Tapol or ex-political prisoners. We discriminate and put them in social stigma for decades. Historians, for example, like John Rosa in his book Protect from Mass Murder, or Benedict Anderson in Spectre of Comparison, emphasize that this was a transformation of violence into administration. Killings, detention, and social exclusion were executed with a bureaucratic precision. In short, the events were planned, structured, and meticulously coordinated, not the result of spontaneous uprising. Next. Amira. Not only the GSO or the historian state evidence, in 2012, the Indonesian Human Rights Commission concluded that 1965 events amounted as a crime against humanity. This assessment was based on the law number 26 of 2000 on human rights court, which defines certain grave violations such as genocide, crime against humanity, and war crimes. Punishable offenses were under Indonesian law. So in this case, legally, the state already has the evidence. Next. Next, Amira. So, no, I think before this one. Okay. So after Human Rights Commission submitted the investigation to Attorney General repeatedly returned the report. Officially, they call it administrative incompleteness. So this was not a legal issue, but I think this is institutional veto, where the prosecutor office systematically used administrative reason to block the substantive legal action, effectively preventing accountability of crimes against humanity that already documented by Komnas HAM. Next. But this pattern is not unique to only case of genocide 1965. We can see it again in enforced disappearance of activists in 97 and 98, Trisakti and Semanggi shootings, Talangsari and Orifon in Papua. Different areas, but same outcome, no accountability. Next. Here we can see that impunity is sustained by institution. We can see previously that Attorney General acts as a political gatekeeper. And at the same time, the other state institution reinforce this impunity, like police and military authorities frequently treat gross violation as ordinary crimes or handle them with internal military procedures with, of course, as you know, lack of transparency and accountability. While in many cases, senior military officials and political leaders protect institutional interests and shield themselves from investigation. Civil society and rights groups have documented many military or police personnel implicated in those abuses today. That SOSAD often promoted or keep them in their position. So keep them out also from facing justice. So, and also this one reflecting a broader pattern that where powerful security institutions act to prevent substantive legal accountability, not because of legal barriers, but because of rooted of political and institution interests. Next. Recently, impunity also reproduced through the official history. State-sponsored projects that often minimize the violence, exclude key cases, and marginalize victims' narratives, and creating national memory where abuses exist without accountability. For example, a recent example that a new government commission, history books, overseen by our Minister of Culture, Fadlison, argued downplay the 1965 and 66 killings and other abuses, framing that Indonesian past in a way that emphasized national pride while sidelining the victim's narrative. Such a selective narrative reinforces impunity, of course, by erasing state responsibility from collective public memory. This is just what happened recently, I think last year. Next. From those national things, I would like to go right now in Bali, because this is also will give the complexity of how that we face the transitional justice in Indonesia. I think all of you know that Bali, well known as, cultural and touristic space or areas, Bali paradise, Bali beautiful, Bali is full of smile, culturally it's very unique. But honestly, in Bali, experienced one of the highest proportional death rates during 96 and 95 and 96 genocide, with estimated around 80,000 Balinese were killed, for about 5% to 8% of the island population at the time, making it like proportionally one of the deadliest regions in Indonesia. Historians such as like Robert Cribb highlight that these killings were widespread, systematic, and deeply embedded in local communities, showing that how states and militia, which is famous as Tameng, coordination escalated violence in the village and the district level. The killings often occurred within families, as army-backed militias went to house, from one house to the other house, targeting anyone accused of being communist or sympathizer. Man, woman, and even in some villages with no children were executed, sometimes following by local dispute or personal rivalries. Yeah. While their homes were burned and entire communities terrorized. Despite of this scale of brutality, public discussion of Bali's 95 and 96 experience remain extremely limited. I mean, if we can say the island trauma largely absent for the national narrative. Next. What makes Bali then silent from this or transitional justice threat? Because in Bali, justice is concerned by tourism politics, Tourism industry needs harmony, harmony, peace. So harmony has to prioritize to protect the image. Any stories about violence which cause Balinese as a perpetrators framed as a destructive. So since, Bali has experienced the violence not only 65, there were bomb blasts in Bali in 2002 and 2005. And there are also war puputan against colonial from 1906. But those kind of story were become a public consumption and also spread out through the history of state. Why? Because in that case, the perpetrators is not Balinese, while 65, 66, the perpetrators is Balinese. In this case, to provide the harmony as a foundation of tourism, that's why the 65 and 66 genocide should be silent. Bali should be economically stable and also so then the stability should be valued over accountability. So silence of 65 becomes a form of economic policy to protect Bali, to protect the economic tourism, to stay stable, so in order that people still come for the tourism. So in that sense, the tourism is one tool to protect how then the truth of 65 came to become a public discourse. And at the same time, stop Balinese to become critical, even critical and talk about the truth even for the death of their own families. In this case, transitional justice trap in Bali, Balinese people are framed as a cultural beings, not a political subjects. Justice seeking in Bali is seen as an un-Balinese kind of behavior. As a result, accountability culturally managed and politically deferred. Next. I think before this. Oh, next, sorry. What we see then in Bali is not an exception. It is a model, I think. Justice is culturally managed. Accountability is deferred, and silence is reframed as a harmony. At the national level, the same logic allows perpetrators to be honored, victims to be mobilized, and responsibility to disappear from public memory. Last year, the state honors are normalized impunity by separating recognition from accountability. Indonesia has granted a national hero status for Suharto, the dictator that have 32 years run Indonesia in the New Order regime. He's responsible for 1965 and 66 killing. So, and also many violence happens during the New Order regime, including what happened in 97, 98, what happened violence Papua, Aceh, and all part of Indonesia. It is show that perpetrators can be publicly honored. Meanwhile, at the same time, Marcina, a labor activist who were killed in 1993 during the dictatorship regime of Suharto, is also remembered symbolically. She was brought also as a national hero. But ironically, her killers, the perpetrators, were never brought to justice. These examples reveal that a system where the state commemorates history without enforcing responsibility, allowing past abuses to be sanitized in national memory and national history. Next. So I think this is my last slide, that Indonesians' failure to deliver transitional justice is not a mistake. It is a politically by choice. The violence of 1966 and 65 was systematically project of killing, mass detention, and destruction of political rights. Its purpose was not only to eliminate people, but produce fear and silence that would last for generations. And it worked. The state already known this, its community. The law exists, the evidence exists. What is missing then? Political will. Instead of justice, the state offers ceremonies. Instead of accountability, it offers fake dialogue. Victims are acknowledged, but only as a symbol, never has a right as a bearing citizen. What we see as a peace right now in Indonesia is often carefully curated. Peace is postcarded. It offers stability without accountability, harmony without responsibility, and memory without truth. Official history erases responsibility in the name of order. But I think all of us know silence is not a peace. Harmony without justice is not reconciliation. And stability without truth is not democracy. Without truth and justice, stability is not a peace. It's a system that preserving impunity. So I think that's my presentation. Thank you.